March 28, 2024, News Report 1. On March 28, 2024, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce announced the cancellation of high tariffs imposed on Australian wines, effective from March 29. This decision comes against the backdrop of deteriorating relations between Australia and China, sparked by former Australian Prime Minister Morrison's call in 2020 for an international investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 virus. On March 28, 2021, China imposed anti-dumping duties on Australian wines ranging from 116.2% to 218.4%. Prior to the implementation of these tariffs, China was one of the largest importers of Australian wine. However, following the imposition of high tariffs, Australian wine exports to China plummeted from $1.1 billion AUD in 2019 to just $240 million Australian dollars, resulting in a loss of $860 million AUD. This had a disastrous impact on Australia's wine industry. With the inauguration of Australia's current Prime Minister Albanese, relations between Australia and China have begun to thaw. In November last year, Albanese visited China, and China announced a review of the high tariffs imposed on Australian wines. In December 2023, Australia shipped millions of bottles of wine to Hong Kong, worth $65 million, awaiting the removal of tariffs by China before re-entering the Chinese market. However, with China's declining demand for wine in recent years, it remains to be seen whether Australian wines can replicate their success in the Chinese market as they did in 2019. News Report 2. According to Radio France Internationale, on March 27, 6 UN human rights rapporteurs publicly released a joint letter addressed to the Chinese mission to the United Nations. The letter extensively criticizes the enactment of Article 23 of the Hong Kong Basic Law, stating that it infringes on the basic rights of the people of Hong Kong. This rare public letter was sent before the implementation of Article 23 of the Hong Kong Basic Law, highlighting its significance. The 18-page letter lists 9 specific violations of international human rights conventions. The rapporteurs pointed out that the vague and broad provisions of Article 23 of the Hong Kong Basic Law restrict the freedom of Hong Kong citizens, and even cooperation with the United Nations could be seen as colluding with foreign forces. The implementation of these regulations could lead to a large number of human rights violations, particularly affecting Hong Kong residents, journalists, and human rights defenders abroad. The 6 human rights rapporteurs called on the Hong Kong government to conduct a comprehensive review of the legislation on Article 23 of the Basic Law and consider establishing an independent review body to regularly review this law. The Hong Kong Human Rights Information Center pointed out that the rapid follow-up of UN human rights experts on the legislation of Article 23 of the Hong Kong Basic Law demonstrates their belief that this legislation poses an imminent threat to human rights in Hong Kong. News Report 3. U.S. State Department spokesperson Miller stated that on March 26, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Campbell and Chinese Deputy Foreign Minister Ma Zhaoxiu held a phone call to discuss a range of bilateral and global issues. Campbell emphasized the importance of maintaining peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, South China Sea, and Korean Peninsula, and expressed U.S. concerns about China's support for Russia's defense industry. This conversation was the first of its kind between Campbell and Chinese diplomats since Campbell assumed the position of Deputy Secretary of State. The Chinese Foreign Ministry stated that Ma Zhaoxiu clarified China's position on issues including Taiwan's economic, trade, and technological issues, as well as Hong Kong and the South China Sea. In addition, Chairman Bergman of the U.S. House Intelligence and Special Operations Subcommittee visited Taiwan on March 28, where he met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, former President Lai Ching-te, and former Vice President Xiao Mei-cheen. Bergman promised to continue supporting Taiwan, emphasizing the importance of the U.S.-Taiwan partnership in countering China's actions and ensuring the security of the Indo-Pacific region. It is worth noting that China prohibits countries that have diplomatic relations with it from engaging in official exchanges with Taiwan. News Report 4. According to Yonhap news agency, North Korea recently installed a protective cover at the West Sea satellite launch site in Dongchang-ri, raising suspicions in South Korea that North Korea is preparing to launch another military reconnaissance satellite. According to a source in the North Korean military, North Korea has completed combustion tests of the three-stage propulsion system for an artificial satellite, but it cannot be confirmed whether the propulsion system has been delivered to the launch site due to the protective cover. It is estimated that North Korea will launch a military reconnaissance satellite in April, which would be the first launch this year. In November last year, North Korea launched a military satellite, but the South Korean military believes that the images captured by the satellite are not suitable for military reconnaissance due to insufficient resolution. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un previously stated that North Korea will launch 3 military reconnaissance satellites this year. In addition, the South Korean Navy's First Fleet Command conducted a maritime maneuver exercise in the eastern waters of Korea from March 25 to 27 to commemorate the 46 servicemen who perished on the South Korean warship Cheonan, which was sunk by North Korea in March 2010. The exercise included live-fire shooting and drone response training. According to Voice of America, Park, a senior U.S. official responsible for North Korean affairs, stated on March 18 that the U.S. hopes to engage in dialogue with North Korea on issues such as sanctions, humanitarian cooperation, and building trust. Park stated that the U.S. hopes for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, but complete denuclearization will not happen overnight. Krina, a researcher at the U.S. Shipowners Foundation, said that U.S. officials are trying to convey messages to North Korea through various channels, including third parties, but North Korea is not willing to discuss denuclearization or other non-nuclear issues. For North Korea, nuclear weapons are an important tool, and they will not easily give them up. News Report 5. According to the Liberty Times, on March 26, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force stated that after deploying Tomahawk cruise missiles, Japan will share intelligence on attack targets with the United States. This means that when exercising their retaliatory capability, the U.S. and Japan can jointly attack the same target. Japan has purchased 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the United States, which are expected to be deployed on the Maritime Self-Defense Force's Aegis ships by 2025. The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force stated that the United States has sent personnel to train Japanese operators at the Yokosuka Naval Base in Japan. 25 personnel from the Maritime Self-Defense Force participated in the training, which included receiving combat command on U.S. warships and conducting ground attacks on Lhasa. Additionally, U.S. warships planned to conduct ground attacks on Lhasa in the Gaza Strip no later than early May after the war. Currently, there are still 4 Hamas militant camps in Rafah, where Hamas leaders and some hostages are also located. It is reported that Israel's offensive will last for 4 to 8 weeks, or 1 to 1.5 months. To address U.S. concerns, the U.S. has asked Israel to evacuate approximately 1.5 million local Palestinian civilians during the attack. U.S. concerns are about ensuring the safety of civilians, but Israel plans to monitor the evacuation process to prevent Hamas militants from mingling with civilians. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre stated that Israel has requested a rescheduling of talks to discuss its military operation in Rafah. According to a Gallup poll, 55% of Americans oppose Israel's military action in Gaza, with only 36% in support. Support for Israel has dropped by 18 percentage points among Democrats and Independents, and by 7 percentage points among Republicans. Additionally, 46% support Biden's environmental policies, while 27% support his Middle East policies. The U.S. government's decision is reportedly based on electoral needs for President Biden. However, some believe that the rift between Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is only superficial. Communication between Defense Secretary Austin and Israeli Defense Minister Gantz is very close, reflecting the relationship between the U.S. government and Israel. The latest battlefield assessment by the War Research Institute shows that since mid-January, Hamas militants have mainly attacked Israel in northern and central Gaza. This indicates that despite Israel's comprehensive entry into Gaza for over 5 months, Hamas still has the ability to attack Israel proper. News Report 6. According to the data released by Statistics Canada, Canada's population exceeded 40 million for the first time last year, reaching 40.77 million, an increase of 1.27 million compared to the previous year, the fastest growth since 1957. Alberta's population growth rate was 3.4%, while Canada's natural growth rate last year was 2.4%. Among the new population, 97.6% are foreign immigrants, mainly temporary residents, most of whom are foreign workers and students from countries such as China. Canada is filling its labor gap and driving economic growth by introducing temporary residents. There are currently 2.5 million foreign workers in Canada, accounting for 6.2% of the total population. However, the influx of immigrants has put pressure on Canada's housing and community protection capabilities. Therefore, the Canadian government plans to reduce the number of temporary residents by 500,000 in the next 3 years, controlling the proportion at 5% of the total population. To cope with the population increase, the Canadian government has enacted the Tenant Rights Act, requiring landlords to disclose property rental records to tenants to prevent arbitrary price increases. The government will also establish a $15 million fund to protect tenants from unfair rent increases and abusive landlords. These measures may lead to rent increases, as seen in this typical case of rising rents. News Report 7. A survey conducted by CNBC shows that 47% of Americans support banning or divesting from TikTok. In contrast, in a poll conducted by the Associated Press and the Public Affairs Research Center in February, only 31% supported banning TikTok. The survey was conducted from March 15 to 19, showing a significant increase in support for banning or divesting from TikTok, from 35% to 47%, with opposition at 35%. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill on March 13 requiring ByteDance to divest TikTok rather than shut it down. Divestment means selling off ownership. The survey results show a significant increase in public support for divesting from TikTok rather than banning it. By party, 40% of Democrats support a ban, while 60% of Republicans support it. In terms of age, younger people are more opposed, possibly because they use TikTok more and have a deeper understanding of it. While the stance on TikTok may not determine the outcome of the U.S. presidential election, support for Biden and Trump is roughly equal. Therefore, the attitudes of these two presidential candidates towards TikTok may only result in minor differences in support rates. News Report 8. The BOA Forum for Asia was held in BOA, Hainan on March 28, with Li Jianshu, chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, delivering a keynote speech. This year's BOA Forum for Asia activities began on March 26. The forum did not officially open for the first 2 days, but a series of press conferences and sub-forums were arranged. In his 20-minute keynote speech, Li Jianshu stated that investing in China is investing in the future, and China is willing to strengthen cooperation in scientific and technological innovation to cultivate new economic highlights. He also stated that China will actively align with high-standard international economic and trade rules. These remarks have sparked controversy, with some considering them mere rhetoric. Currently, from Xi Jinping to Li Jianshu to Li Chang, Chinese leaders have shown a friendly attitude towards foreign investors and foreign capital. However, actual policies are still subject to observation. News Report 9. According to Caixin, China saw 32,300 cases of whooping cough in January and February this year, a 22-fold increase compared to the same period last year. There were also 13 deaths during these 2 months. Whooping cough is a disease caused by bacterial infection, with symptoms similar to a cold, including runny nose, fever, and mild cough. Severe coughing occurs several weeks later. Whooping cough mainly occurs in children under 5 years old, usually lasting 2 to 3 months, hence the name whooping cough. China requires infants to be vaccinated against whooping cough at 3 months old, so the sharp increase in cases after vaccination is unusual. Pediatrician Yao Ting said that since 2023, the number of children with whooping cough has increased significantly, the age of children seeking treatment is older, and the symptoms are sometimes atypical. Shen Hongbing, director of the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention, said that current whooping cough prevention and control measures should be taken seriously. The sharp increase in the number of children with whooping cough has once again raised questions about the effectiveness of China's vaccines. News Report 10. On the evening of March 29, Lei Jun, the founder of Xiaomi, unveiled the new model SU7 of Xiaomi's car in Beijing. SU7 has 3 versions, with prices ranging from 215,900 yuan for the standard version, 245,900 yuan for the Pro version, to 299,900 yuan for the Max version. This marks the official debut of Xiaomi's car. Lei Jun said that their goal is to create the fastest car priced below 500,000 yuan. Currently, Xiaomi has set up 60 showrooms in China, with 500,000 people already booked for test drives. The low-priced launch of Xiaomi's car has also led to price reductions in other electric cars. According to Thai media estimates, after the Spring Festival, 24 car brands launched 63 electric car models, among which BYD launched 13 new models at lower prices. In this new round of price cuts, Tesla has reduced its production in China and raised prices on April 1, leading to a decline in Tesla's sales in the Chinese market. Evergrande Auto released its financial report for last year on March 27, with revenue of 13.4 billion, an increase of 9 times, but a loss of 12.1 billion, a decrease of 56%. The financial report shows that Evergrande Auto produced 17,000 electric vehicles named Hengqi 5 last year, but only delivered 13,000, leading to financial difficulties. Evergrande Auto's Tianjin factory has stopped production, workers are on vacation, and the company faces the risk of bankruptcy.